Performance. One thing that you'll notice in your packets this month that's different, we haven't officially started the meeting, so, there are actual minutes from last month in there, and that is a new requirement for all city committees and meetings that in the packet, the previous month's meeting minutes are included, so that when you're approving the minutes from last month, they're physically there, so you can read them. That's a new thing. And the other new requirement is that this meeting has to be published, I believe, within 3 days of the end of the meeting. So no more like, sometimes you'll see other committees where you'll get the minutes from city council, like, a few days before the real meeting, like the next month's meeting but that's a new requirement now. So, that's just more for me to figure out, like to get that done in a timely manner within 3 days. So if the packets seem extra long, part of it's because the minutes are in there. And there has to be an agenda item for every item that's on the agenda. So that extra piece of paper that says agenda item and it says like recommendation and yada, 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 that has to be included for every single item.
For coordinating all that and the update.
Well, really Shelby did all the coordinating, our IT person. She's just like making everyone aware of it and making sure that we all follow the new rules. Sister Sally.
It's 5 o'clock, so gang's all here.
Go for it.
Right, welcome members of the commission, the public and city staff to our June 2025 Sustainability Commission meeting. First up, roll call. Krista Cannon present. Ned Dorf is excused. Alder Presley
Here.
Julia Nordite here. Jenny Brinker
Here.
Amy Cox
Here.
Mark Walters excused. Danielle Yelp
Present.
and Corey Mim present. Thank you all for being here. First up is approving our agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Alder Presley. So seconded by Krista. Any discussion on the agenda before we vote? All right, Danielle Kading has been the waiting room.
Okay.
Just number. All right, all in favor of approving today's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved. Next up, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the May meeting?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Alder Presley. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jenny. That was Jenny, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, just hold on just 1 second. I want to make sure I get these votes. Jenny second. Okay.
Any discussion on our meeting minutes from last month? All right, all in favor of approving those minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, they are approved. Then on to regular business. First up, we have consideration with possible action to recommend the resolution opposing the repeal of clean energy funding programs in the House Concurrent Resolution 14. Common Councilor, Standing Committee. Open up the floor for any discussion about that. Maybe I should ask first.
Staff. Usually comes first.
Any staff comments?
Yes, so in your packet, there's a item report for this. This has been obviously a hot topic for the last several months. And this was introduced by staff and some elected and also supported by the mayor of Green Bay to put forth this resolution. Just to give you all a background, in 2021, our Green Bay Common Council adopted a resolution committing the city to achieve the clean energy goals of 100% clean energy and carbon neutrality by 2050. The city has put much staff time and resources into the formation of the Clean Energy Green Bay Plan. And much of that plan, it has a strong reliance on clean energy funding and the tax credit programs that are currently available. Without these federal programs, it will be not impossible, but infinitely slower to implement our clean energy plan. And so there's a lot riding on this, not just for the city of Green Bay and in the city operations and fleet electrification and building efficiency and renewable energy. But there's also economic impacts. This will could potentially increase utility bills for residents as well as the city of Green Bay. With not being, with costing us more money to put renewable energy on our buildings for the projects that we have in the pipeline. So I won't read the entire background, it's all there. Staff does recommend that Sustainability Commission vote in support of the resolution and recommend that the Green Bay Common Council also vote to approve this for consideration and adoption during the next city council meeting. And then there are a couple of different attachments there for the references that are cited in the resolution. So I'll keep it to that. Alex, I think, had a couple of things he also wanted to say. He is also staff. He's our clean energy connector and has been working for the last year with residents and small businesses and nonprofits on clean energy projects and education. So I'll hand it over to Alex.
Sure. I mean, I would certainly say that when we look at the clean energy plan, like an enormous piece of it requires like the gradual, electrification of people's homes and small businesses. And really, in order to make that a viable possibility, we really require like a lot of tax credits that are scheduled to be eliminated at this point. These include things like the new construction, tax credits, so that applying energy efficient technologies to new construction homes. Also things like the 179D commercial building tax credit, which predates the IRA by many years, so it's been around for quite a long time. But also things like the home energy, home improvement tax credit that people can use to slowly sort of build a plan to transition their homes different technologies, and also improving doors and windows and insulation and other things that make rooms more efficient. And then probably the one people talk about most is the 30% tax credit for residential clean energy, which includes the solar PV rooftops and backyards and so forth. It's going to be really difficult to have people make these transitions without those kinds of incentives in place. So in my opinion, when you talk to the people, implementing that clean energy plan is going to be just much more demonstrably more difficult without these.
Anything else from staff?
Well, I also note that like a lot of the things that are being phased out are things that predated the
IRA
Act of 2022. So this isn't just setting us back to where we were prior to that. It's also setting us back in many respects prior to the beginning of the 21st century.
Right. I'll just speak from my personal experience. I mean, I was using on my home here in Green Bay tax credits for energy efficient doors, energy efficient windows. These are all basic things that people look at, especially in older housing stock that need to be replaced. And most recently, it's a natural gas water heater, but it's an on-demand tankless water heater, which also is a very energy efficient option. And so those also would be scaled back or cut back. The other thing I want to mention is that the more these tax credits are eliminated, it'll just make competition for existing energy programs, state-funded energy programs, that much more competitive. So it'll be harder to get money for the things that, you know, that people want to do, whether it's city operations or a homeowner or a property owner or an apartment building owner, or, you know, whatever kind of building owner you're talking about. So that's, you know, Alex mentioned it might be, you know, really difficult for this to turn at this point, but, you know, there are still changes that can be made, and we're really hoping our federal legislators are listening and advocating for their local governments. Because there's many, many local governments that have goals like this, not necessarily 100% renewable energy, but building energy efficiency and cutting back on their utility bills. I would think most local governments could relate to that.
You know, there's also a public health component to this as well, you know, like a lot of existing, you know, gas technologies, natural gas technologies do involve, you know, indoor, you know, air pollution. So
This is a combustible fuel source.
precisely, so that's also a consideration.
The members of the commission care to speak to it? Think it would be interesting to hear from some of our different work groups about how this interacts with other work that the commission's doing. And in addition to the clean energy plan, how it's going to impact our community from your vantage point. I can say for the clean energy work group, right, we recognize that, you know, in our discussions with energy users that are not residential or municipal, that are more of the industrial side and representing the industrial side, consistently the thing that we hear is that one of the biggest barriers to successfully navigating this kind of economic shift that will come whether, you know, we have funding in place or not. One of the biggest challenges for small to mid-sized businesses is having adequate resources to even take advantage of some of the existing programs, let alone do it without some of those existing programs. So, you know, from my perspective on kind of the clean energy work group, I think the impact of small to mid-sized businesses, which is a significant part of the local economy, right? It'll be significant, and it'll be that much harder for those entities to make this transition and support not only the clean energy Green Bay plan and the commitment to carbon neutrality, but just their own resilience be impacted.
I guess I'll echo that. I mean, incentives work. I personally, like Melissa, have used these incentives to put in Energy Star qualified doors on our own home in Green Bay. So, you know, the incentives push you to go with a higher efficiency piece of equipment or, you know, piece of building envelope like we did for our house. And also, I work in this industry helping businesses and farms become more energy efficient. And when they're presented with choices, of course, they want to pick the one where their operation is going to cost less to run over time. And in order to make that investment in the energy efficient equipment that helps their profitability over time, they typically rely on an incentive to make that initial investment. So without it, I'm afraid they won't consider the more expensive energy efficient technology that's available. And in the end up not only, you know, for the community's benefit, putting more emissions into the, or just not benefit, putting more emissions into the air because they're using more energy, but they're also spending more money over time. So these incentives work. They've been around since a Republican era. George Bush, you know, was more bipartisan support at that time for energy independence. And the political pendulum is swinging, and unfortunately, it is going to cost people more in the long run.
Any other discussion? Please, Alder Presley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, just from as an elected official, my perspective, this is gonna make budgeting season difficult, I think, because of some of these credits to the city for the projects that we're doing. We're going to have to make a tough decision to either discontinue those sort of projects, or to put it on the levy, which nobody wants that. So yeah, it's we love passing things when we see the fiscal impact, and the fiscal impact is low, because we have other sources of funding for projects that are important for the carbon neutrality plan. And yeah, not having those, it's going to be difficult when budget season comes around.
So Melissa, what does the resolution do? Overall,
Overall, what the resolution will do is it would give a city of Green Bay local government voice to this. It's not necessarily going to stop, you know, our federal representatives from changing their minds necessarily, but I think it puts a public message forth that as a city, our elected leaders, our city council, you know, they voted to support the clean energy plan when it was passed in December of 2023. It doesn't mean that when they passed it that every single person was on board with it, but they did vote to approve it, and the projects in it were deemed good projects, good plan. You know, and then staff would be responsible, you know, for implementing it and bringing project by project, you know, for example, our DPW East and West garages are slated to have rooftop solar installed this year. And making that case doesn't mean that everything in the plan is just blanket approved, because that's not how the city works, right? You know, every year you have to have things approved, projects approved. But without the tax credits, if they do end, if they're voted in and they end at the end of year 2025, and we don't necessarily have our 2025 projects in the ground, operational, working, you know, online, so to speak, then the city might lose out on the 30%, which is like almost $200,000. And that includes our fleet electrification. That includes new building construction for energy efficient items that are going into it. They'll still be focused on energy incentives, but without the federal tax credits, it'll be less of that money coming back to the city. So it'll lower that return on investment. That doesn't mean that the project should just get, you know, thrown out, but they're going to be under more scrutiny to justify them from an economic basis, just like what you said, Alder Presley. So, but you know, it's more than just saving energy. It's occupant comfort. It's what does this building mean to the community? I mean, when cities build buildings, they're around for a long time. You know, they're not torn down after 30, 40 years. So the investment needs to be thought of as a long-term endeavor. But to your question, Jenny, it will basically just, the city will be taking a stand.
that's what I thought. I just
Okay.
wanted to make
Yep,
sure.
that's what it'll mean.
Okay, that sounds good.
So it's kind of the city of Green Bay's collective appeal, just like we can make individual appeals to our elected officials.
Right.
It's the city of Green Bay's collective appeal
Yes.
to decision makers at the federal level,
Mhm.
not to pass the resolution 14 as it is, but
Mhm.
rather to modify it to restore some of the funding that we're talking about today.
It also has the benefit of letting more of the community know what's going on too. So I
Yes.
think that's a big
Mhm.
piece of the benefit of doing that too.
I agree. Go ahead, Alder Presley.
Just add that I hope and will encourage my fellow alders to pass this unanimously. I think that would be a strong message because I think we run the gamut of political persuasion, but I think we have all seen the benefit of programs like this, tax credits, and hopefully we'll see the wisdom in vying for them to continue. Regardless of where we feel about the current administration, we can look at individual policies without taking a strong partisan stance on it, which is, I hope the council will do so.
Anyone online have anything to add?
I guess I will just say, I do think that this is in the city's best interest and supported is fun, so.
Julia? anything from you? No. All right, sounds like we might be ready for a motion. Maybe between staff and Alder Presley, I know there's a couple of options for what our motion looks like. Any thoughts on if we refer to this resolution to a specific committee or common council?
But I will say that timing is definitely a factor.
I'd say full council.
Full council. Alright, do you wanna make a motion to that effect, or would you like me to,
If we
or
just
anyone?
I
move
think
to
some draft
approve,
language in your item report.
Yeah.
This, so you could work off of that if you so choose.
Do we need to I mean, y'all have your packets. Any proposed modifications to the draft resolution? Right, while you're reviewing. Could I make a motion and then we discuss before voting, or should we make any modifications? First,
I had read it earlier,
Yeah.
so I'm ready to.
make your motion.
make my motion, okay, let's see. Move to recommend the resolution as is to common council. Does that count? Is that worded appropriately?
To recommend resolution as written.
To common council.
For adoption.
That's my motion.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion, if anyone would like to modify any language or just anything, would be a good time to say that, and we can incorporate that into the motion before we vote.
Can you just repeat it one more time?
The motion?
I typed it. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please. I was like, I just made me.
She said, move to recommend a resolution as written to common council for adoption. You could probably remove the word move and just say to recommend the resolution as written to common council for adoption.
Yes, please.
If that was, if that is what people want, if that's what the commission supports.
Yep.
My second still stands.
All right, great. Any discussion, including modification to the draft? Oh, it looks like we have a member of the public who would like to weigh in.
Should I make a motion to open them? Well, hang on.
Can we
I've got
pause
like
the
a
motion? Or do we have to vote on it first?
Motion to open the floor would supersede the existing motion, wouldn't it?
So we have to make that motion again?
No, it just stands. It's just
Okay.
sitting there.
So the motion is right now to open the floor. So I need a initial and a second and a vote.
I motion to open the floor.
I'll second.
Okay, so that was Julia,
Jenny,
Jenny, vote.
all in favor of opening the floor to the public? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the floor is open. Sister Sally Ann, please go ahead.
Thank you, I'm Sally Ann Brickner from the Sisters of St. Francis of the Holy Cross on Nicolay Drive, 3110. I was wondering, because this is put in the negative, opposing the repeal. Is it possible to say to retain the clean energy funding programs?
It was already.
That was just the thought I had.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Sister Sally Ann. Do we discuss before we close the floor? Do we need to leave the floor open and then discuss? You have to close the floor before we discuss.
Yes.
Okay, then any other comments from members of the public before we close the floor?
Motion to close the floor.
I second. Okay, who initiated that?
Dr. Presley? Should I say Commissioner Martin?
Okay. Well, that would be a first.
All right, all in favor of closing the floor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The floor is closed. All right, so comments from the public include, is there an opportunity to modify this to be affirming rather than negative?
Well, I think Sister Sally Ann brings up an extremely important point, actually.
Yeah.
That's definitely something I would be supportive of changing. Just in general, to be the positive of what is, I just think is a much better strategic communication approach.
I'll second that. I think it supports a lot of our discussion too. We weaved in and out of how a lot of these credits have been around for a while. So it's a matter of retaining them like they've been around for over a decade. So I like that idea.
All right, does anyone have any specific language to propose?
I would move that we amend to state in the title resolution supporting the retention of clean energy funding programs in House Concurrent Resolution 14.
Thank you, I'm gonna note that.
Include tax credits.
We didn't hear anything, but thank you, Sister Sally.
And then there's lower too, it's actually not too negative, other because it's explaining things, but it's be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Green Bay opposes the repeal, so of the clean energy tax credits, that needs to be supports the
Retention.
retention. Is retention the right word here?
In the title, I put resolution to retain instead of the word retention.
Yep. What, sorry, for the
The title itself.
resolution to
Resolution
retain.
to retain clean energy funding programs in, basically just substituting the word opposing. The repeal, those words with retain.
And then I guess I have a question, like, does it have to be, is it good that it's specific to the House resolution, or can it
Yes.
just, okay? It's
Yes,
not
that
like
was
within the FY 26 federal budget.
our law department recommended this wording.
Okay.
So that's a good point to bring up because timing was already considered as an
Right.
issue. Will this need to go through another set of legal review?
Not necessarily.
These minor adjustments?
Not necessarily. If it's very, very minor, I would say it probably doesn't, but the motion would change to, you know, recommend as amended, the draft amended, you know, it would need to be reflected that sustainability made these amendments, made these suggested amendments.
Great. I wanna revisit the motion that we already have standing, so we can go ahead and close that. It sounds like we would not like to approve it as drafted, but we would like to approve an amended version. So I'm going to ask for those in favor of the initial motion. It sounds like most of us would say no to that. And then,
Just amend it.
can we? Can we just amend the motion?
We can amend the motion on the floor.
Oh, okay, great. I just wanna make sure we kept it clean, for Melissa. All right, then let's amend the motion on the floor when it gets to that point. All right, perfect. I just didn't wanna go too much farther because I knew I'd forget that bit. All right. All right, so we have a couple of spots where we can amend, including the title, resolution to retain clean energy funding. I'm curious about how that will affect this language, so. Retain clean energy funding, in-house concurrent resolution 14. That would have to read pretty differently, wouldn't it?
I don't know exactly how we would change that.
Maybe funding that's being repealed, or I don't.
Yeah.
So the
Does not
resolution,
support, maybe?
Yeah.
Then we're into negatives again. I
yeah,
wonder if this is worth,
yeah, that's kind of, so we're in favor of taking a more positive approach. The challenge would be how to word that in a way that still communicates what we're trying to get across here, right? Is that we don't want House Concurrent Resolution 14 to pass. We support keeping the clean energy funding. However, it sounds like from a legal perspective, it's important to include that specific reference.
Can the title vary from the? Be it resolved and keep that verbiage the same, but just change the title, so you're kind of introduced as in a more positive light?
I think so. I mean, it's gone through a couple iterations among staff review the title itself.
Right.
Can you share any insight that might help our discussion?
Well, I mean, it always had opposition in it,
Okay,
okay,
I'm not sure.
but it softened a little bit from like some of the other versions, so.
Sorry, I'm using some. I have maybe a suggestion.
great.
Be resolved that the Common Council of the City of Green Bay affirms its strong support for clean energy tax credits and federal funding programs, recognizing their vital role. This is off, but
What paragraph are you in?
the first sentence,
Be it
part of that, be it resolved.
Right. Can you say that again? Common Council City of Green Bay supports, or can you say that?
Support, affirms its strong support for the clean energy tax credits and federal funding programs.
So this, I love the language and the way the rest of it is worded. So firms that support of clean energy tax credits and federal funding programs. This is where it gets.
And then it could say and urges, so then say
Yep,
you had that,
yep,
and then you
yep.
had and urges the Wisconsin's congressional delegation to reject House Concurrent Resolution 45. Provisions and instead support the continuation and expansion of investments. So then you can keep the House Concurrent Resolution language in there.
So affirms this, so the Common Council, the City of Green Bay affirms its strong support for clean energy tax credits and federal funding programs. And urges Wisconsin's congressional delegation to reject provisions in the proposed House Concurrent Resolution 14. And instead support the continuation and expansion of investments. It's just kind of moving that to the flow sentence.
It's just one
So we're kind of
suggestion.
rearranging the
Mhm.
wording.
Mhm.
Does
I think if you have that all typed up. I'm not gonna put it in there right now, but in the minutes, it would be reflected in the amended.
And I can send that,
Mhm.
which to if it's useful, okay. Let me finish capturing this, and then maybe we can talk a little more about it.
Do you need, and I'm just gonna, for this paragraph, do we need the retention, like, do we need to keep in there the House concurrent resolution? Is that an important piece in that paragraph too? Cause otherwise it's, you could change, urges Wisconsin's congressional delegation to support the continuation and expansion. I don't,
I think
it
we need,
seems important.
yeah,
To reject that. Okay.
yeah, because that's the circumstance for why we're
Okay.
doing it.
Got it.
Okay. And I thank you for sharing that language. Did
Probably use
we
more.
full circle on the title? Where are we at on?
Can you please, do you have, did you have the title? Did you have something drafted? Can you repeat it?
I'm not sure how what we talked about actually works with the rest of the language. So what we talked about was resolution to retain clean energy funding.
That has been proposed.
Proposed for repeal in,
Yeah. Yes. I like that. It just makes it a little bit longer.
I was just wondering if funding is the right word. When we were talking about tax credits.
Programs. We use programs later on,
for the funding.
federal funding
programs.
programs,
Mhm.
which is probably redundant.
We could say clean energy tax credits and funding programs.
Yeah, that sounds better to me. More precise.
So resolution to retain clean energy tax credits and funding programs. Currently. Proposed. For repeal, is that what we said?
So.
Well, if we're talking about the House bill that passed already, then they're not proposed to be. Would be repealed.
Currently repealed in.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I have resolution to retain clean energy tax credits and funding programs currently repealed in House Concurrent Resolution 14.
I would say, I'm gonna go back to supporting the retention, just because our resolution wouldn't be retaining, our resolution is a support rather than. I think the verb there has to be support rather than retain. I don't know what's the thing.
You guys wanna make recommendations? It's up to you guys.
Okay.
All right, so as it currently stands, the title is resolution to support the retention of clean energy tax credits and funding programs currently repealed in House Concurrent Resolution 14.
Sketchy.
I like it.
I do like it, it's,
Ding, ding,
it
ding.
makes sense, I mean,
All
it's
right.
very clear.
Great.
I'm happy for the positive language
Thank
that
you.
was suggested.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Sister Sally Ann. Any additional comments or modifications?
Do you have a draft to read for that last?
I'll do my best. I have it, I'm working on the comments in the PDF, so
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna do my best. Okay. Be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Green Bay affirms its strong support for clean energy tax credits and federal funding programs. Once again. We would have to say,
And I think it's and urges. Wisconsin.
yes, so okay. So Common Council affirms its strong support for clean energy tax credits and federal funding programs and urges Wisconsin's congressional delegation to reject the provisions in House Concurrent Resolution 14. And instead support the continuation and expansion of investments that enable energy affordability, economic opportunity, environmental leadership for Green Bay residents. I think we might need to keep modifying that a little bit. Sentence. Oh, the way I wrote this.
Oh, you wrote it. You rewrote it.
A lawyer put lawyer on it, okay. All right, so the Common Council of the City of Green Bay affirms its strong support for clean energy tax credits and federal funding
We
programs.
have a period there and have a sentence.
I like that.
You're gonna make a new thing, okay.
When you refer to like the common council, you don't say common council again, urges, you would say we or us, some, is that?
Well, it's signed by the mayor. So,
Well, cause
think we
it says
would
be it
have-
resolved that the common council supports. So then what's the beginning of the next sentence that before the word urges, who's urging?
I think we have to say the common council,
Okay.
or just the council. I like the common council again to be specific.
Can we just keep it as a run-on sentence instead? So we don't have to rewrite all of the language.
I don't mind to run on something.
All right. City of Green Bay affirms its strong support for clean energy tax credits. Oh, it thinks I'm speaking in a different language. You and me both, AI. All right, City of Green Bay affirms its strong support for clean energy tax credits and federal funding programs. And urges Wisconsin's congressional delegation to reject the provisions.
In-house.
Proposed?
Yeah.
With provisions, I'm a little confused as the context of that in the
Yeah.
sentence and,
That's what I'm struggling with.
okay. Like,
The repeal, you could say the repeal of
yeah, it would
certain
repeal,
programs.
right, something that's throwing me off a little.
How about to reject the provisions in House Concurrent Resolution 14 repealing.
Yeah.
This funding.
Yes.
Okay,
Isn't provisions a legal word? Anyone?
Bill, I'm reconsidering adjusting this language. I'm just gonna have to go back through legal review again.
Or, I mean, we did modify the title,
Yeah,
which makes it more positive. And if we're struggling with this last paragraph, do we leave it?
this
I'd be
is where I
okay with
think an attorney would probably get involved. I think the title is one thing. I think this is the bit that would really need legal review. And I'm a little bit concerned about my legal expertise to draft something that's using all of these terms appropriately.
I would support just changing the title.
And leaving that paragraph below? Oh,
It already says what we're doing. It's just,
How quick does quick? How quick is quick?
Great
I need
question.
it
When's the
for
next
this.
common council meeting that hope this will be presented at?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
I don't know, I mean, the
Yeah,
plan,
so not much time.
Yeah,
There's not much
so 2
time.
business days, basically.
I mean, basically, I'll have to get the minutes done tonight. And post them to the common council agenda, because I'm off tomorrow.
Okay, so one business day.
So that's not realistic for a
No.
legal review.
No.
And then the motion that is on the floor is to approve as amended to common council, yada, yada, yada. So how does that make, there's no time for it to go through a second legal review, you know, would like to have it looked at again.
So the question is, do we care more about getting this language modified to frame it positively rather than as opposition? Or do we care more about getting it before common council? Because this is probably the last common council meeting before it gets voted on in the Senate, right?
Very likely.
This is our last chance.
Seems like this is our primary chance, because it will have to go through legal review again.
Well, I think if you make that many modifications, it will. I think if it's, you know, just a few words in the title, I don't think that that's going to necessarily trigger anything. But, you know, it'll go to common council and they may have their own thoughts and want to make different modifications on top of that, so.
So you think the Senate's gonna vote on it because their deadline is July 4th? Is that why you're saying?
There's a sense of
before the
urgency, yeah.
I see, I kind of disagree with that. I do not think so. I would prefer to get the language in yeah, in the right way. For the reasons we started even this conversation, I guess. I don't know, because when the next common council meeting is just 2 weeks after that,
No, I don't think so. I don't think we meet in July.
There's a break.
you don't meet in July at all.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or if we do.
I know in the summertime, the meetings are scaled back, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we meet in July.
Let's see. Agenda. Schedule.
I mean, here's one thing we could do that is maybe straddling both, but keeping the language.
We do July 15th, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. So. In the sentence as it's currently stated, it starts with opposes the repeal. And then it ends with and instead support the continuation and expansion of investments. But if we flipped that sentence around. And said, the city of Green Bay. Supports the continuation and expansion of investments that enable energy affordability, economic opportunity, and environmental leadership for Green Bay residents. And opposes the repeal of ... So we just flip the sentence around and keep the exact same language.
Sorry. Go ahead, Julia, sorry.
I think if you're gonna do that, I think then I was thinking earlier, instead you could have the common council supports. And that's that ending, the continuation, blah, blah, blah. And then you could say, and urges the Wisconsin congressional delegation to reject the provisions that repeal the federal funding programs. The tax credits and federal funding programs. Provisions in House Concurrent Resolution 14 and instead support, and maybe just end it there. Too, so it's just rearranging stuff, but.
Can you tell me the phrase you want to see removed? Is it opposes the repeal?
It's opposes.
You
That's the
don't like the
word,
word.
right? So it would be, let's see, what was the thing was, just forgot the firms that strong support, so. Be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Green Bay supports the continuation and expansion of investments that enable energy affordability, economic opportunity, environmental leadership, and Green Bay residents. And urges Wisconsin's congressional delegation to reject the repeal of clean energy tax credits and federal funding programs proposed in House Concurrent Resolution 14.
So we're essentially striking opposes the repeal of.
Well, you put repeal, because you're saying that's what's being in the House concurrent resolution 14, which is what you were having a harder time earlier with the word provisions. So it's also getting rid of provisions. And making that specific to what you're urging them to reject.
Okay, let's see if we can pull this together. Strong support. For.
I think that ties into the title we agreed on earlier nicely.
Here's what I have so far, and I don't think it's done. City of Green Bay affirms its strong support for the continuation and expansion of investments that enable energy affordability, economic opportunity, and environmental leadership for Green Bay residents, and urges Wisconsin's congressional delegation to reject the provisions proposed in House Concurrent Resolution 14.
Nope.
Okay.
So
Correct.
close, really close.
Okay.
Instead of the provisions, put in to reject the repeal of clean energy tax credits and federal funding in House concurrent resolution 14. Proposed in.
Right, thank you for stopping me. Okay, City of Green Bay affirms its strong support for the continuation and expansion of investments that enable energy affordability, economic opportunity, and environmental leadership for Green Bay residents, and urges Wisconsin's congressional delegation to reject the repeal of clean energy tax credits and federal funding proposed in House Concurrent Resolution 14.
We'll just put in programs after funding.
Yes.
Thank you. That was my concern. I was like,
To match the language, yeah. Because these provisions is what it's referring to,
all right,
the repeal of.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, let me read it one more time.
and then
Yes.
are you ready to vote?
I hope we're ready to vote. Okay. All right,
Floor is closed right now.
all right. I'm sorry, Sister Sally,
You don't
the
have to-
floor is not open right now.
And you don't have to open the floor. It's not a requirement.
All right, let me read through this. If anyone wants to, anyone can make a motion at any time. All right. The City of Green Bay affirms its strong support for the continuation and expansion of investments that enable energy affordability, economic opportunity, and environmental leadership for Green Bay residents, and urges Wisconsin's congressional delegation to reject the repeal of clean energy tax credits and federal funding programs proposed in House Concurrent Resolution 14.
Just to be clear, it's starting with that, the Common Council of the City of Green
Yes,
Bay.
yeah.
I'm sorry, but I just want to add something because I think it talks about Green Bay residents, but I think it's businesses too, and beyond just the residents that are
Community, so could you do Green
Yeah,
Bay community?
something,
Can we put that in there instead, residents?
yeah, I don't know, just a thought.
That is a good thought.
Businesses also reflected in the term residents.
I think. so.
Maybe.
To me, that's like everyone represented in Green Bay. So if you're not a resident, you're not.
Potentially. I mean, I don't live in the city of Green Bay and I work for the city of Green Bay, working on implementing buildings within the parks and things. So I don't know. I'm not a business and the city is a business,
You
but I'm
could,
just,
you could strike it, you could say community members. I think that's very all encompassing.
I agree.
Okay, it sounds.
Should I read it again?
Yes, please.
All right. Be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Green Bay affirms its strong support for the continuation and expansion of investments that enable energy affordability, economic opportunity, and environmental leadership for Green Bay community members, and urges Wisconsin's congressional delegation to reject the repeal of clean energy tax credits and federal funding programs proposed in House Concurrent Resolution 14.
So moved, or?
All
Can you read the title again as well?
right, can I, once I like go off of this, I can't type into it anymore. Do we agree on this bit? Can I leave it alone or should I take a minute?
It's okay.
I thought it sounded good.
Anyone online? Danielle or Amy, you good?
Good.
All right. We move on from this. All right, and our title is Resolution to Support the Retention of Clean Energy Tax Credits and Funding Programs, currently repealed in House Concurrent Resolution 14. Do we have agreement? Any further modifications proposed to this resolution as amended? All right, then we have a motion on the floor. I think we're ready to vote. Final call.
What is the motion on the floor right now?
I feel like you're making me.
No.
Recommend the resolution as amended to common council for adoption.
I just forget.
So do I, that's why it feels hard.
And we have Krista initiated the motion and Alder Presley seconded the motion.
You seconded it. I don't even know what-
All right, we're ready to vote? All right, all in favor of the motion as read, and the resolution as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, the motion is passed. Excellent. So don't let me leave here without emailing that language to you. So, okay. All right, next up, we have a discussion and possible action to draft a rights of nature resolution. This is reflected in your packet. Thank you, Alex. I will open the floor. Do you have to make a motion first, or can I just open the floor for discussion on it?
You don't have to, if it's just the commission member,
Regular.
you don't need to open the floor for commission members.
Yeah, okay, great, let's talk about it. Alder Presley, do you wanna say anything on this?
I can, sure. Did you want to talk about it at all, Melissa?
No, I wanted you to lead it.
Okay, I am happy to do so. So this is something that Sue, what's her last name?
Vanderheide.
Vandahai, that's it. She came to me with this a while ago. I know that she works at Joshua, and Joshua has been pushing for a rights of nature resolution in many communities statewide, but here specifically. The idea of it is that it's a resolution, so it's in the same vein as what we just talked about, where it's not a binding thing, but it affirms the council and city's belief that nature ecosystems like rivers, wetlands, forests have the right to exist and flourish in our community. And so the hope with that would be that going forward, when council is considering development or investment or changing anything, that we would have that as sort of a framework for how we're going to approach the natural impact, that we recognize that these natural systems have a right to exist, and if we do something to harm them, we are infringing on their right to flourish or whatever it may be. So it's symbolic, but it's something that's been done in Milwaukee County, Menominee, Indian Travel, Wisconsin, Ho-Chunk Nation, and there are advocacy groups trying to get it passed statewide. So yeah, there's more information, and there's the resolutions passed by other bodies are included in the packet. But what I would like to see from this meeting is that we uh we approve to start drafting something. And I included in collaboration, I believe, with tribal nations, just to make sure that we're getting multiple stakeholder agreement involved in it. Yeah, that's basically it.
A couple of, just reaction from me, from staff, in general, I think this is a good idea. I do have a couple of things that I think will be difficult, to implement, as far as, you know, if a resolution like this were to be approved. I think you mentioned in the item report and the background information that you sent, that's in the packet of like possible researching like possible enforcement of such a resolution, and I think that would be very difficult. So I don't know if we would necessarily want to include that in a resolution. As far as like language. I'm trying to find where you have, I'm looking at the information right now, but, under number 4, referral to staff, once the draft resolution is prepared, direct city staff to evaluate legal pathways, potential enforcement mechanisms. And alignment with existing environmental regulations and report back with implementation options. So I think that could be. Not insurmountable, but difficult, because I think there's already we already have difficulty enforcing certain things.
Right.
So, it's from a staffing perspective, it really would depend on how the resolution is worded.
Right.
And I would urge the Sustainability Commission members to do that initial drafting. And then work with staff after an initial draft is done.
I think I really like that. I'm supportive of this idea in general. I think it would be good to have, I think drafting it with the commission before it goes to staff or members of the, and then us talking about it probably is better first before it goes to staff and then legal. Like, I don't know. That's why I was like,
I think this is a good work group project.
yeah, so when we did the water resolution, we worked on that like separately, and then I don't know what happened to it, but it was drafted by our, work group member, yes. I also think this would be good for a meeting if there's some draft language for like to look at, is maybe a presentation from someone from Joshua to kind of give us more background, because I do think this is a newer idea for this area particularly, and so I think it would help all of the commission and the community like learn a little bit more about the idea and the history of it, because there's like where it came from and some examples like in Colorado and stuff like that. But so I think that would be complementary and helpful to the discussion if we get into a resolution and what may or may not be good in it.
That's really wise. I know, kind of to Melissa's point about enforcement and implementation. I know just enough about federal regulation to know that it's maybe not explicitly opposite this, but doesn't take this approach, right?
Mhm.
And I think it would be interesting to navigate
Mhm.
enforcement of something at a local level that doesn't align with federal and or state regulation. I think
Yeah, I think that one of the big differences is that the Native American nations have tribal sovereignty. And they have different authorities and rights because they are a sovereign nation and in equal footing with the United States. So it's not an apples to apples kind of
Right.
proposition.
Yeah, maybe the enforcement thing's kind of like getting us too I think generally.
I'm okay.
That's
Yeah.
the second, that's like a
Yeah.
piece, but that's definitely something to consider, but then also, it's. Again, like, what I'm just like comparing it to the water resolution stuff, it is good because the comp plan is coming up and like to get like kind of things like this in it, there's ideas, so you're out there like. Saying this is our approach, or this is our general like strategy, it's not, maybe whether it's enforceable or has, stuff like that, to me is a different conversation, but. Putting it in like vision statements or like things like kind of codifying that this is like our community's approach is a good thing in general too, so. But.
Yeah, so
Opportunities.
it sounds like the whatever resolution that we might come up with would be more introductory maybe and less taking a firm stance on this as a local government entity.
It does look like Milwaukee County has a resolution, as you noted in your supporting documents,
They
so.
call it non-binding,
Mhm.
yeah.
It'd be really nice if Joshua was doing stuff around the state on this already, that they maybe give us a presentation and then also help draft the resolution.
I'd like to learn more about it. I think that sounds like a good idea.
Great.
I just have a question. I support this. I love this idea and think it would be great for the city if we could get something like this to pass. Being, part of the stewards of the parks and things, those naturalized areas, of course, are very important. And I know like our greenways and things we look at as, spaces that help to clean the water before it enters into the waterways and things like that. And so that kind of ties into my question, which is, it looks like for the recommendation that it would be more, it does say habitat integrity, but I'm curious to know if your hope is for the resolution to focus more on waterways, and or like upland or other, I mean, you talked about wetlands, so that's more upland than, or is the focus more on water? Is it also like those greenways and things, that the city has, like, in addition to the waterways, I guess is what I'm wondering.
I think it could be, my focus was, I was thinking more of water when I was writing this out, but. I started broad with natural ecosystems, so that those could be included within it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly something we can discuss if we go forward writing out text of this resolution.
Because it seems like some of the examples were more focused on just waterways and then some had more just water. So.
Water focused.
Right, yeah.
I don't think about Greenway.
Right, so it sounds like. It's like a member of the community. Would like,
Motion to open the floor.
Second. Oh, cool.
all in favor of opening the floor to the community?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sure,
You did.
doesn't matter. We both-
Julia initiated.
Yeah, they both.
Flip a coin.
All right, the floor is open to the public. Please go ahead, Sister Sally Ann. You're still muted. Sister Sally Ann, you're muted.
Let me just see if I. Hang on.
There we go.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the rights of nature. As you were talking about whether it would be the waterways or other elements, I was thinking not only of the waterways, but air, all of nature, and we are part of nature. So we talk about us having rights. This would recognize flora and fauna as well as part of nature, and that they too would have rights that we would take into consideration. So I'm thinking about, like, say, for example, birds. They also are part of nature and they're pollinators and would be come under this rights of nature, it seems to me. I just think of my patron, Saint Francis. He called nature as something we were in relationship with. He talked about brother wind, brother sun, sister moon, sister water. So all of this would encompass then the rights of nature to be thinking about.
Thank you.
I just want to comment, Sister Sally, Ann, as you were talking about birds, a little bird just like came up to the window in this room here as you were speaking, so it was pretty cool.
And the thing is, I don't know if you see it, but I see so many fewer birds this summer or this spring. And it worries me. And I think back of Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, and I'm saying it's really happening.
So Sister Sally, and you're in support of this concept.
I am support of learning more about it. And I think that there are other countries that have also gone the route of recognizing the rights of nature. It's hard for us, though, I think, to use the language of rights because we think of the human rights resolution, or of the United Nations. And so I think lawyers would say, well, what do you mean by rights? And who is it that speaks for the water? Who speaks for, the fauna, the flora, and so on? So it can be difficult, I think, for us to really recognize that we are not over and dominating nature, but we are one with nature. And what we do to the nature, we do to ourselves.
Thank you very much for your comments and feedback.
Motion to close the floor.
I'll second.
Yes. All right, all in favor of closing the floor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the floor is closed. All right, so the recommendation is that the Sustainability Commission draft a rights of nature resolution for consideration.
I guess like, I don't know how you amend a recommendation. But I would just add in there like that we, for number 4, it gets referred to staff that there's, an educational component and then also hearing other, discussion from the commission after and getting questions answered and stuff like that. And then that could be, those kind of conversation could be incorporated into the draft too, before it goes to staff.
Alder Presley, would you be willing to reach out to your collaborators on this and ask if anyone would be willing to do a presentation?
Again.
I think we have a presentation scheduled for July. So I think August would be the earliest that we'll be able to entertain a presentation on this.
There is no rush on this, fortunately. It's a legislature, not people.
All right, to make a motion then?
Yes. And I think it's a longer one because there's multiple things. It's with education, we're working with maybe Joshua getting speakers, so I don't know how you wanna sum that up.
Yeah, let me just look at the actual.
Well, the recommendation is just to begin
Drafting.
drafting, right?
Right.
So. Do we have to add all the extra?
No, I guess not.
Yeah, this was just discussion and possible action, right? So you
Mhm.
don't have to make a resolution, we can just discuss it. And we have to do.
Well, it's an action item, so either, say this is. To continue, working on drafting the resolution or. It wouldn't really be to receive and place on file. Cause that doesn't really indicate continued work.
So even though it's regular business and just says discussion and possible action, we still have to act on it. We can't just discuss it.
No, you have to have a motion.
Okay.
Maybe motion to continue research. And research of rights of nature and move towards drafting a resolution or something. along those
motion
lines.
to invite a speaker,
But does a recommendation need to be made that to draft stuff in general anyway? Because I know that was the action on here, but
Right.
we didn't like it.
I think
Again, I'm
what
just
this is
comparing
saying
my
is that
previous.
because of the type of agenda item it
Yeah.
is, we have to have a motion that comes out of it.
Can we just,
How about for-
Referral to the commission, can we refer it to ourselves to continue the collaborative process of drafting a rights of nature resolution?
Say that?
Or for the commission to pursue, is that what you said?
Yeah, to proceed it with the collaborative drafting, process. Referring the commission to proceed with the collaborative drafting process for a rights of nature resolution.
Referring the commission to,
To proceed,
okay,
to proceed with the collaborative drafting process of a rights of nature resolution.
Tell us when you've got that, Melissa.
and this is what I have. I'll read it back. Referring the commission to proceed with a collaborative process for drafting a rights of nature resolution.
Perfect. I think.
Yeah.
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor of the motion to continue pursuing the rights of nature resolution?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed.
I've learned to just make things kind of vague.
That's great. All right. Then moving on to the informational portion of our meeting, youth engagement work group, we had a very small meeting with the Youth Advisory Council. I now have a link to a form where interested youth can register to be part of the Youth Advisory Council. That's not like an exclusive group that we would meet with, but that's the primary group that we're meeting with. As an extension of the youth engagement work group. I put it on LinkedIn if anyone wants that link. I'm happy to share maybe next month's update. I received it too late to include in this month's items. And there is tentatively planned a volunteer event to clean up. I don't have my notes in front of me, clean up a local area, do a trash pickup that the Youth Advisory Council is what they're calling themselves. Is coordinating. So once we have some information about that, we'll pass it along in case anyone here is interested in participating. That's my work group update. Any questions?
Motion to receive and place on file.
There's not even anything written in there. But yeah, let's do it. Second. All in favor of receiving that report and placing it on file? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so received. On to the climate resilience work group report out.
thank you, I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to go kind of fast through this, but I wanted to I went to 3 different conferences in May. Which was a lot, and I just wanted to share some of the stuff that I learned from that. So the first one I went to is with the Green Infrastructure Leadership Exchange. It was in Cleveland, and it's a national professional group. A lot of municipalities, and they work in green infrastructure. So that was the first time I participated in that. But I just was kind of gonna share some like really amazing, I think it's good for our commission, but the city also to like, you know, have us bring in examples from other communities. And so I
I
was,
was just gonna put it up on the
oh
screen.
yeah,
So
thanks. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Stuff in here.
Because, yeah. Let me just.
I wanna make sure you guys can.
So you can see some of the inspiration, inspirational kind of things.
It's just really slow with filling up the screen here, so.
So the first place, one of the place, we did a lot of tours. This one was a collaboration. It's called the Watershed Stewardship Center. It was like a nature center, but for like dedicated to watershed science. It was amazing, and it was in partnership with the Land Trust. So that's sited on a preserve, but it's part of the Cleveland Metro Parks, and they do tons of programming there. This is like, so it was really neat. This was like a reconstructed, restored wetland, but their whole property is like has green infrastructure examples on it. That second picture is inside the center, and this is like a 3D map of the watershed that the center's on. And so people can like point out their houses and stuff. It's a very, very popular like feature in there. And then they really focus on watershed stewardship and stuff. So it's like super unique compared to like a typical nature center. Aside from the restored wetlands, like all the grounds are like demonstration projects of different types of green infrastructure. So this is this bioswale step pools one. So what that's really doing is it's like slowing down the water as it filters into the wetland, and then it gives a chance for like the sediment to fall out of it in those step pools. And then like just in their parking lot, some just basic like rain gardens collection, lots of lessons learned. You know, the first time they built this, the water didn't, they put the I didn't say that. They had put what is that called? The inlet to the rain garden on the, they put the what?
The curb cut?
The curb cut, thank you. They put the curb cut to the rain garden on the bottom end of. Yeah, so that, for example.
Well, funny.
But then they also have it just in their parking lot, on their grounds. They have, you know, the rain barrel going into a drainage system. They use porous asphalt, unsuccessfully. That's like
Successful about it.
porous asphalt gets clogged really easily, and then also, even though this isn't in a high traffic area.
The walkway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is just like their patio basically, but and it's just not like holding up as well in general.
Okay.
So I have a couple examples of porous asphalt, so I can talk about the next one too. The one with the like stone pathway though, you can see the gutters, the storm drains coming down off the building, and those are rain, like bioretention rain gardens right in front of their building. So it's all just being infiltrated right down, they're downspouts to rain gardens. So those are things you can do. In Northeast Ohio, in the Cleveland area, their water sewage district is aggressively putting in green infrastructure. And part of it isn't, and so they're funding different projects in there. And yeah, but they're also integrating, they're selecting sites that have like history built into them, and really art. A lot of art goes into these projects too. So this site was like the oldest this oldest art building, and it's become an art center in this really old neighborhood. And so really trying to make those connections and so forth like that. So that was really a pretty neat. And the woman I asked like those willows in the middle of the rain bioretention right there are tall. I mean, you can see they're like way taller than the people in the background. And I was like, and that was like unexpected. And I asked the woman, would you like them? She's like, actually, they make great art projects, so, and they soak up a lot of water, so. But that was unusual, I think. We also visited places where and I don't have the before pictures, but a lot of these, so if you imagine, there used to be a house just on the left side of this picture in the floodplain, like house. So they did some buyouts and then this is all engineered to be more naturalized, and what it's really doing is reconnecting the floodplain to the creek. So it's not just like shooting through down, and so they do a lot of meandering and replanting of stuff. This is just another site. This house owner did not want to sell at all, so they worked with the landowner to redo this whole area. But it's really quite nice. And then these really kind of soil burrito things, we just kind of neat.
What is a soil burrito?
I would think earlier was like.
It's like
It kind of looks like a silt sock, except.
yeah, but it has
thicker.
plants in it, and
They plant it?
they plant it. So
Okay.
the other one, I didn't put in both pictures, but the other one has like bushes coming out of it,
Mhm.
the
A
willows.
small berm.
Yeah, it's a small berm
Okay.
and it's erosion control, stabilization of the creek bed, and then it has vegetation coming out of it. So it's like a soil burrito that then
Mhm.
grows up.
Hmm.
Provides
But you don't have to
erosion
go back and
control.
remove,
Yes.
you know, which you see so many of those left in place long after the construction job is done.
So,
Yeah.
new term, I thought that was pretty funny. They seemed like they said they were, like, you don't know what a soil burrito is? Green infrastructure can be really pretty too. This was, I mean, those are permeable pavers. This is the Natural History Museum. And that whole thing is just like bioretention. So I added the other picture from the other side because it was just like gorgeous. Like it matches like the building, which is really neat. So it can be really pretty, manicured. And then I just put this in, the next one, and this was on my walk to the conference, the next one, Melissa.
Where it's heaving up.
It is heaving a little bit, but I mean, this is just like, this wasn't like featured on anything. I mean, it's just being done. You
Yep.
know, it's just a regular strip mall. It seems to be working fine. I mean, even though it was heaving a little bit, it wasn't.
Yeah, you can see it's heaving more in the middle, so this
Yeah.
is the traffic, these are like the
Yeah.
tires.
So where,
That's gonna happen, depending on how much,
yeah.
the weight of the vehicles, how many vehicles are coming through.
So I just like to take pictures too of just like regular old stuff that's not, you know, it's like, oh yeah, they can do it. If they can do it, you know, we can do stuff
Mhm.
like this. It's just commonplaces.
You know, does Cleveland have green infrastructure standards written in that are regulated?
I can find it out.
Okay.
In there, like,
Like in their zoning. And or stormwater.
so the next one, then I went to New Orleans for the Association for State Floodplain Managers meeting, which is like the best place to go look at flood resilience stuff is in New Orleans. Right. So this was an incredible project that like you can see that, and it was really really about it was so loud there because you're seeing two highways here, but there was more than that. It was just like all interstates above you. So this project it's called Vision to Reality. Vision to Reality, and it's because the neighborhood was sick of nuisance flooding, and they did like the neighborhood, and it's in the 7th ward, and the neighborhood really wanted to reduce flooding, and then they went through a prioritization and picked this area to do it. And then they have this Louisiana Green Corps, so they had people who like youth train. It's like a workforce development group that comes in, and this was like one of their first projects. So like they did all the construction of this whole system, except the only things they didn't do were like dig out the whole thing. So they got an excavating company and then like do the actual concrete.
They did the concrete work.
But they did all the settings for the concrete. I'm sure I'm not saying those things right. So it's a huge bioretention. It collects all the stormwater, but it's also like a climate resilience park. So they incorporated like a shaded seating with solar powered amenities, so people can go plug in their devices there if electricity's out. And then it has misting, so it's like a cooling center, and then like a community weather station, so people can get up-to-date information, stuff like that. So it's really meant as like a community green space, but then also like a climate thing. It's New Orleans, they incorporate a lot of art, but art is can be really a tool there to prevent graffiti. So that you can see if you go to the next one too. So there's a lot of graffiti just on those, like the fencing behind there, but people people who do graffiti apparently avoid other people's art. So this is like one of their strategies to avoid graffiti, and it looks pretty amazing too. So like this is that one was a very community, local, neighborhood driven event that reduces like feet of water coming up to people's porches.
It's been proven to do that.
Yeah.
I was wondering,
It's-
cool.
So, the next one's like a really big, this is just like utilizing, I mean, we're kind of starting to do kind of similar stuff here. We're proposing it, but like, how do you create storage during like those really intense rain events? So I just put this diagram on, so when you see the pictures, it kind of makes sense. Off to the left is like a demonstration of infiltration practices, but this is all gonna be, the blue areas where it collects like storage during a rain event. During non-rain events, it's grass, so
It
remember
drains.
that for the next time.
Mhm.
I know the next picture doesn't go, next please, Melissa.
So that would be similar to what
Right.
we installed in Seymour, the east side of Seymour Park.
I
It's outside.
I don't know much about Seymour. Park.
It's a dry pond and the west side has a wet pond. We should tour it.
That would be great. We were just talking about that today, actually.
Oh,
Trying to learn more. I saw half of a presentation on that and I was like, I need to know more. So, yeah.
Okay.
What's unique about this, so they killed all the plants because they had too much weeds, so they're starting over in the middle there, which is like the infiltration but what they're doing is they're testing all the different things that go into it to see which ones work the best. So they did like traditional bioretention cells to see like how much it soaks up, and nutrient like water quality metrics they're taking, just what native trees do, how they intercept water, and then 2 types of permeable pavement materials.
Is this still in New Orleans?
Yeah, this is still in Orange. It was really hot walking through this. And then from that site, we walked along the berm. So this is the berm where you're talking about dry pond, and it's all just grass, and then a big detention basin, basically. So it's all coming from the neighborhood and just fills up that area and doesn't damage anything, but can be used as like green space in the meantime. And then the last site on this tour in New Orleans was, we walked across the street, and also really a localized neighborhood flooding, mainly from the storm sewer system issues, and a really low spot in the city. And so this, I know it doesn't look interesting, but there is like all this massive storage below this baseball field. That is programmed field. So if you imagine, I should have tried. Sorry. Underneath the field, there's like giant tubes, basically, in rows across underneath. So it creates a ton of storage in this area.
Like a drain tile? Something? I don't know.
More like a giant,
Think of like a sauna tube.
Yeah,
a sauna tube.
or
they're-
concrete in the.
but they're not concrete though.
Sure.
They're like, just think of like a giant culvert underground,
Okay,
but it collects the water, it stays in there, and then slowly infiltrates or goes back into like a collecting body of water, so,
so it's holding up the soil above it. It's just a structure that is
Mhm.
basically creating like an underground reservoir that can fill when.
Yep.
There's
Yeah.
flooding. Got it.
And they're giant, like 4x4 tubes, basically, in rows across the field, underneath the
Makes
field.
sense. Okay.
Did I put how much it stores? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. And then there's some more porous asphalt, doesn't look great. What happens is with porous asphalt is it gets clogged really easily. And based on what I just learned from consultant, it really only, like places where it could work well is in bike paths. Actually, it's had some success in Wisconsin with bike paths. But anywhere there's like, could be run on of dirt and stuff like that, it's just not the best product. Yeah, it gets clogged easy. And once it's clogged, it doesn't work very well. So pavers are much more, they're easier to maintain the infiltration into the ground.
Can you vacuum that asphalt to
Yes.
get the
But
debris?
it's still like in our area, you have like a lot of fine clay soil stuff, so it's just, it's gonna compact, it's gonna be hard to vacuum even that,
Mm.
so.
Mhm.
And
And
it's
it's be
just,
done frequently too, to keep up with
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
yeah. So it's not the most recommended, yeah. I would
Like
go
the
with
Bay Beach
paver-
parking lot
paver-
is asphalt, permeable asphalt, but, you know, it's not a high use. Yeah, parking lot at this point.
And it's flat there, so it doesn't have like a, what's called a lot of run on, so like, you know.
It doesn't have a big slope where it's at the
Sure.
end.
Like
you
the
know.
road is all going onto it, basically, yeah. Which carries a lot of stuff. And then I just put in, I guess, more neighborhood green infrastructure just to say, hey, you know, it doesn't look too hard to do. And you know, if you look at that, yeah, that last picture right here, I mean, there's a lot of utilities there. There's not a lot of space, you know, but the bump outs provide like, they slow neighborhoods down, and stuff like that, and they provide some green, which is really helpful for urban heat island, mitigating, urban island heat island effect. So this is really reducing like those big storm pulse events too, to reduce like a foot of flooding in the, so people, I guess it was up to their porches at some point. So,
And these are homes, right? Not businesses?
yes, it's a all a neighborhood, yeah.
And I assume those are like native plants for,
Yes,
This looks like the palmetto.
yeah,
It seems to me, I mean, most people try to keep water away from the foundations of their homes, and like with this being so close to the buildings, I just wonder,
I think it might be a little bit farther away than it looks. 'Cause
Yeah.
I see a guy walking, so
like
it's
there's a
like
walk
there's a
between it
sidewalk.
or something.
yeah,
It's more like our terraces.
Yeah,
so Okay,
you got
gotcha.
that, and then the
Yeah,
sidewalk going down the street, and then you can see in here, like, the water goes in, it's got a lower depression area, but then you've got this, which is for like, if the water gets so high, it's gonna start going down there, going
down into the storm sewer.
down into the storm
Okay.
sewer.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I guess like the big thing with the green infrastructure stuff, is a lot, I mean, a lot of these examples are, it's not just, you know, it's the municipality or the parks or whatever, the county or whatnot, but it's also, there's so many partnerships, so, you know, it's working with like local orgs a lot too, and to do different pieces. I mean, we have the Green Bay Conservation Board kind of, but that's kind of still part of the city and stuff like that, but they also help like integrate art and history and stuff like that, and trying to really make those projects better, and then really integrating like community amenities and like the art and history and stuff into those projects, so. And then, I don't have any pictures for this one, but I went to what's called the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative Conference down in Milwaukee, and it's the mayor's conference of the Canadian mayors and the Great Lakes mayors, and the city of Green Bay is a member of this. And I saw Mayor Genrich, he was actually on a flood resilience panel. I know. I didn't know that till he got up there. I guess I wasn't looking at the agenda close enough, so. We were really featured as flood resilience, highlighted and called out for our flood resilience efforts here. And I guess it just reminds me again, like when things come up with the city, like that we should be out in front and talking about that, because we are on a great lake, we're on, you know, one of the greatest water resources on earth, and we're doing really good flood resilience stuff, so we need to get that integrated, I think, into other places too, especially since the mayor's up there talking about it, how great it is. So, and then, I guess I'll just end, I also had, when I was out there, there were several people who came up to me and gave me compliments about, or complimented Melissa on being the flood, resilience, doing all the resilience work for the city too, so. So we are being recognized, professionally around the state and across the Great Lakes, yes, and internationally, so that's pretty exciting, so.
Close.
Oh, sorry, one more thing. I should have mentioned this earlier. I don't want to end on bad news. At the flood meeting, associations meeting in New Orleans, mass quantities of FEMA and federal funding for flood resilience and like mitigation is being cut. And generally what is probably going to happen is they're really pushing to put it on the responsibility of the states
Yes.
and local governments. So what that means is also over and over again, the main message is to do sunny day planning. So make sure relationships and all the flood resilience planning we're doing is like now while it's not flooding is really important. And so, yeah.
I have a question to help you end on a positive note. Which is, you mentioned, one of the things that make all of these initiatives, or a lot of the initiatives you observed so successful, was that it was a collaborative effort that pulled in not only, resilience, when it comes to flooding, but also making the community more beautiful and celebrating art and history. Do you know how they did that? Like, is there a consistent theme, or do they have a person on staff or an advocate, or like how do they getting that done? Any ideas?
That's a great question. Part of, some of it's like their strategic planning. So like there was, one community or one city doing planning around like urban heat island and like really focusing in on thinking about like doing mapping first and like targeting those areas and stuff like that. And I think, just work, I have to look at around us and see who's around to do those kind of projects too, and who's interested. The history one was really unique. I mean, that was particularly in Cleveland, and there's just so much history that's never even brought out. So it just takes some, like whoever's doing the project to like, okay, or having it somewhere saying we're gonna focus on these pieces.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then identifying them and then working with those places to either find the history of the location, if you're gonna like Emily Park, for example.
Mhm.
Like, what is the history of Emily Park? We have a lot of history here and
Mhm.
a lot of resources for history. So, and then building that into the education once it's developed, like within the signage and stuff like that, and like acknowledging the history of it.
Mhm.
So,
I'd be curious if you have any insights you can share, if it's something you'd be interested in, as part of like a work group. Maybe you can take like a meeting this, upcoming sometime in the remainder of the year, and maybe get some recommendations. Maybe we can, is that something we can do? We can, like,
Sure.
refer that to city staff or something, like if we pull together some of the existing initiatives that you shared last month, where we could look at that, or like upcoming initiatives to look for opportunities to kind of collaborate across not just green stormwater, but
Mhm.
also, how is this promoting, just looking for like, I'm failing to identify the right words. It's like cross-referencing
Mhm.
stuff that we're doing with, stuff the community values, right? With local art and history. And I think it might even help us find unexpected champions for some of the sustainability initiatives for the community, right? Where people who might care about history or art or natural space, but don't care about flood resilience, or, flip that around in any way, right? It could help people recognize the.
yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, I just think there's like, when we start the green infrastructure conversation, it's been years now, but a lot of it is about flooding or water quality, but there's like the real successful projects integrate like those community amenities and like really focus on the community benefits beyond the stormwater technical stuff. And that's how you get the buy-in too. And so, I don't know, yeah. So sure, yeah, I think we could think more about it.
I was a journalist in Madison. I interviewed somebody who was the Metropolitan Sewerage District's artist in residence.
Oh, wait, of
Yeah.
course they have that in Madison.
Yeah, that's very Madison. But I'm sure because they did art related to water.
How did they fund that? Any idea? No.
Yes, grants for artists out
There's a
there.
state program, I thought.
Yeah, I lived in Maine and they had an amazing state law where all projects had to have 1% to art. Like, so, I mean, so bridges, whatever, the buildings, the municipal building, like everything, they had 1% of the budget has to be dedicated to art.
That's very cool. All right, I know we've been at this a long time, but if you could think about that and if you get inspired, I think that would be really interesting. 'Cause I think that's a great point and something that I think we can all recognize as an opportunity in Green Bay is to find areas of mutual interest to kind of cross promote. Opportunities, so thanks for bringing that.
I run an arts festival. So
Voila. All right.
collaborate.
Thank you. Do you have anything else you want to share? Dave?
No, thank you,
Sure.
thank you. Thanks, I know this is late tonight, so I appreciate it.
Sure. Any other questions or feedback for Julia?
Motion to receive and place on file.
Seconded. All in favor of receiving that and placing it on file? Any opposed? So filed. Melissa, do you have some resiliency coordinator?
Very quick, yes, so, Valerie Houston has been, named the new Director of Public Works. For anyone that did not know, that is effective June 2nd.
Steve
He's retired.
retired. Okay.
Yeah, he retired.
Oh, he's retired.
He retired June 2nd, she started right away.
Oh, wow, okay.
I mean, there was a whole hiring process.
Yeah.
You know, there was a whole hiring process with it, but, yeah, she's the director now and, you know, still doing stormwater utility manager roles, obviously, because we don't have that, position filled, so she's doing both in the interim and all of us are helping her. And it's really great. I had a couple other things to mention. So the Connect the Bay project, which is a project that will connect Bay Beach to South Bay Marina near the mouth of the Fox in the Bay of Green Bay. We're having a public open house August 16th from 10 to 2 p.m. Check-in, it will be in parking lot F of Bay Beach. All the details will be posted on the Connect the Bay project webpage, which is live. And we also have a project webpage on the city's website as well. So if you just Google Connect the Bay, you will find it. Or if you search within the city's search engine on our webpage, you'll find it. We're in the design phase right now, so this open house will be for collecting public input. We'll have surveys, we'll have people walking, you know, participants along the shoreline of, you know, pointing out where some of the proposed things are. And then lastly, we had some really good news last week. For the Emily Park East River Wetland Resiliency Project, we learned that we will be getting $150,000 from the Fund for Lake Michigan to continue the implementation. So we don't have a grant contract yet, but when we do, it'll go through committee and council for approval. But we were told that the project is selected for funding, and that is for construction and implementation. So up to now, we have $530,000 of grant applications of secured funding for the project. So still a ways to go.
Okay, that was my next question.
Still a
What
ways to
is
go.
that in terms of-
Still a ways to go. We have pending grant applications with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for the Stewardship Grant Program. Which will be used if awarded for some of the recreational features in the wetland area, so the boardwalks, overlook platform. And those features, that's what it will be used for, because it's a stewardship grant, so it's for recreational purposes, primarily for enhancing outdoor recreation. And then the NOAA grant is still pending, so we're still a sliver of hope on that, but you know, with all the federal cuts, it's not looking great.
I'm just curious, given what you just shared about like incorporating art and history, I'm wondering if there's any opportunities
We put that into the plan to have a location or a spot for public art, but as of right now, that's not like a feature of like what we're looking for grant funding for. And it could really be added at any time in some of the areas like along where the trail, where there's some, where we have space.
I was more curious.
Oh.
Could be an opportunity for funding, like additional funding. By like emphasizing or highlighting. the
Sure.
Historic or artistic value of that space.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
have no idea.
I reached out to our arts coordinator when we had an arts coordinator. We don't have our arts coordinator anymore. And it's definitely something that we have been asking for, or at least we brought forward at the beginning of the process. But I believe it's not in our design plans now. I think that was eliminated due to funding. But we need more people working, like looking for those community connections, and we just need more staff people or more interested community members to say, hey, like, I know of a potential funding mechanism for that, and then, working within our, where it could go and how it can be integrated, and, but we're planning for educational signage, and so maybe the art can be worked into that. There's really a lot of possibilities when you think about it. Doesn't have to just be a sculpture on a concrete pad mount and there's your art. It could be something else.
Well, I mean, I think in some of the examples you shared, the green infrastructure was the art, right? It's like, it was like one and the same.
Right.
Yeah. So cool, that's exciting.
Those are my updates.
That's good news from the city staff. All right, any questions or comments for Melissa? All
Do
right,
you have a motion to receive and place on file?
motion to receive and place on file the resiliency coordinator update.
Not doing this.
Anyone?
Motion to receive and place on file.
All right, Julie can do the motion, I'll do the second. All in favor of receiving that and filing it? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, it gets to be filed. Our next meeting is July 16th. I think we're back to a Wednesday for that one. And without further ado, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. We did it. Thank you all. We'll see you July 16th.
So when you suggest when you like do the motion or second the motion, do you still have to say aye?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't that good?
Anyone who,
You might change your mind from the time you say
I have seconded things and then voted against them.
See?
Because, well, at least in calculus,